Hello, everyone, and welcome to our first webinar of our webinar series. And I am Funda Tun, and I work in University of Twente and Faculty of ITC. But here in this webinar, I'm representing iDream Society, Integrated Disaster Risk Management Society. And I'm moderating this webinar together with Roland Nussbaum. And so we are very happy to host you all here today. And so we have almost 150 registrations. And we will see, like, I see that also the number of participants is increasing. And we are like participants from 5 continents, and we have participants from science, also the scientific and also practitioners background. So, like, it's an honor to open this webinar. And like now, I will give the floor to Ana Maria Cruz, who is the president of iDream Society, to open this first webinar. Ana Maria, the floor is yours.
So, well, good evening to, I guess, good evening because I'm in Japan, sorry. Greetings to everyone, wherever you are. I'm sure we have participants from all over the world, so this is wonderful. On behalf of the iDream Board of Directors and myself as president of the iDream Society, first of all, I would like to thank Funda and Roland for enthusiastically moving forward this initiative. And let me just briefly tell you about the iDream Society. It's the International Society for Disaster Risk Management, iDream, whose catchphrase is I dream, you dream, we all dream for a better world. The iDream Society was established in 2009 after a series of 9 annual conferences dedicated to integrated disaster risk management, which started in 2001 when we weren't talking about integrated disaster risk management that much. iDream is an academic society, and we currently have about 220 members from a large range of disciplines and backgrounds. And we continue to hold annual conferences in different countries every year. Last year it was in India, and this year it will be in Cartagena, Colombia, on 28 to 30 August. So everyone is kindly invited. And in addition to that, for over 10 years, AFPCNT, represented by Roland today, AFPCNT has been a supporting member organization of iDream under the leadership of Roland, to whom we are very grateful. Thus, I'm very happy that AFPCNT and iDream Society have come together to welcome you and to open together this voluntary international initiative called the Network of Networks on Risk-Based Decision Making. I think the initiative is very important in today's world where we have a lot of information, but sometimes it's difficult to understand where and what kind of information is out there, particularly data, publications, models, tools, and so on, and how these are developed, validated, and so on, and who and how that information can be accessed. So I think the Network of Networks series aims to showcase different ongoing initiatives from around the world. The webinars, I think, can provide an opportunity to promote discussion and exchange between producers of information and the end users, to showcase good practices and, of course, challenges, because we can all learn from that, which I think can loop back to improve how information can help meet end users, information needs, data and capacity development needs, and so on. So I'm very much looking forward to today's event, and I encourage you, each one of us, to actively participate in the discussions. And I hope this first webinar will pave the way for many more opportunities for networking and open dialogue. So thank you very much and welcome.
Thank you, Anna Maria and Funda, very much for the kind words. So I am the third introducer and will act as a moderator with Funda for the whole event. As everything has more or less been said for the introduction, I may just introduce further the second partner of this initiative, which is a civil society organization, or in other words, the civil society components of the national platform in France. So subtle elements to understand under what I say, but I cannot elaborate right now. The point is, as indicated already by Anna Maria, we have this long-term, I would say, experience between an association, an international scientific association, such as iDream Society, and national civil society organization involving as well scientists in it. And the idea of this project for, again, a long term, possibly, is to bring together practitioners and scientists in order to address concrete cases. So this has been, I shall not elaborate long on that because it has been described in the advertisement, I would say, but it's quite important to, and we have seen during the preparation of and to development of the concept as a preparation already between Funda and myself, that there are two cultures to work together, the practitioners on one side and the scientists on the other side, but working for the same goal, which is neither a development of a tool, which will be reflected in the presentation of Nicolas Bonnin, neither a project like the European project presented by Cees van Westen, but it's something to bring together a kind of diagnosis of the needs of end user and how they are fulfilled already in the present time by a concrete tool development, and according also to some needs. In this case, we are facing the needs of the users, the way the government has implemented some legal framework to satisfy this type of needs at the national level and through a specific tool. So this is very important. And the other side, we have a project which addresses very large aspects of the end users' needs with respect to risk-based decision making, end users being considered at this stage also as professionals, not only the end users of the overall the general public. And so we are in this kind of approach with the expectation to reproduce this, maybe with your help as audience, the first audience of the first webinar. We can consider with you, if you want, to do other experiences like that. And with the accumulation of the exercises, we may contribute somehow, like small civil organization and international scientist organization, to a kind of state-of-the-art or assessment of the Sendai Framework for Action, which has been evaluated at international level last year at the New York conference on the midterm review. And here you have the slide for introduction of our talk. Thank you, Clara, and indicated the places we are located right now. And we want, so also this is a kind of more ambitious target for this ongoing initiative. It is to produce some contributions, either through the webinar, either through participation to conference, or to producing papers about this issue, which has been put on the invitation, how to make RBDM work and meet the needs of end users, which I have witnessed this midterm review of Sendai Framework last year at United Nations, and we can say that we might produce a useful contribution to this international endeavor of implementing the Sendai Framework if we can document through our respective experiences and scientific new development to this issue, which is a very societal issue. So I should stop and maybe just go through the slides, if we can go further and very briefly verify if we have addressed the points. Clara, please change. Okay, so we have gone through just to check the organizations. I may not have said much about AFPCN, but we can perhaps come back later. So the second level is the international initiative, which has been more or less described, I think. And the webinar today, the topic has been explained a little bit. The audience, I don't know how many we are, but we are 36, so still a progress range until the number of registries, but it's lunchtime in our place at least. So David already can say that the audience is according to the target, meaning that we have all categories of players who are represented, and this is also the idea of not to stick to one category and have a pro-domo discussion. And so the speakers, I think you will discover them through the presentations, and you will also, I may say at this time, that there will be, of course, web pages available on this event, producing various written material, and in this the kind of CVs of short CVs of the speakers. So this is my contribution to the introduction. We may now perhaps invite the first speaker for the main part of this webinar. So it will be Nicolas Bonnin, who is head of unit at the French Ministry of Sustainable Development and within the Director General for Risk Prevention. And I see him, he's on the screen. So please, Nicolas, it's your floor. You are the floor.
Okay, thank you very much. Hello, everyone. I'm working at the Risk Prevention Department of French Ministry Environment.
Est-ce que c'est coupé de ton côté?
It seems to be okay for us.
Okay, it's okay. Unlike most you, I'm not a specialist in risks, but in digital transformation. I'm going to try and show you we use digital tools to help people to prevent risk. At the
Design?
Ouais, c'était pour Florence là.
Je ne sais pas, j'ai l'impression que c'est beaucoup de choses. Okay.
Just wait a minute, please.
Sorry for the delay, we are managing it.
Okay. Second.
Well, you can continue. We see the
Okay, thank you. Sorry for the disagreements. Next, please. Yes. As a general department for risk prevention, we manage natural risks such as floods, earthquakes, tsunamis, and landscape, as well as industrial risks as associated with factories, nuclear activities, mine, and polluted soils. Our main work is upstream of the crisis. We need to know what the hazards are, reduce them where it's possible, and publicize them so that people can be prepared and the impact of possible events are limited. The solutions that I'm going to show you is a part of population prevention activities. In France, we have a set of regulations known as an IAL, Information Acquéreur Locataire. which is in place since 2003 and has been incorporated into our environment code. Since 2003, property owners have had to provide to their brewers and tenants with an assessment of the main dangerous phenomena, pollution, flooding, earthquakes, etc., to which their property is exposed. This invaluable information when making a decision and for the future occupant at the property. These regulations were tightened in 2023 with a link to GeoRisk must be included in all property advertisement. And as you see on the right, sorry. And a risk report must be present at the first visit to a property, whether for sales or rent. The aim of this requirement is to make brewers aware of the risk involved, any planning restrictions that may apply, and to help them to be better prepared in the event of a hazard occurring. And we have a free service to carry out this risk assessment to help property owners comply with this obligation, and more generally, to help the general people understand the risks that affect them. This service is GeoRisk. So GeoRisk website celebrates its 10th anniversary this summer. It underwent a major overhaul in 2022, just before the EAL change we have just been talking about. It was a very complex website, especially for professionals and experts. The website was completely rewritten with an individual universe in everyday non-scientific French, accessible and understandable to everyone. Today, almost 30% of visits are made from a smartphone, which shows that individuals have invested the website. The website now receives more than 8 billion visits in years, half of them from property professionals. We publish 5 million risk reports, and also have system feed many other informations. Since 2/3 it's used via API, application programming interface, or by downloading. One last word, next, if you please, yes. One last word to show you that we cover 24 different risks depending on the data we have. That's why we are constantly working to improve data production and, above all, to create a national repository of risk knowledge. GeoRisk comprehends 3 universes. Today, we are going to concentrate on private individual, but we also have free information and services for mayors and local authorities. And of course, we share all your data with open data with experts. We provide them a detailed view of risk, regulations, and ways to reducing vulnerability. I've prepared a short video presentation of the website, but it's for a better understanding. I let Clara comment it to you.
Thank you, Nicolas. So just 1 minute, so I can show you the video.
Let's go.
Sorry for the delay. Okay. Okay, normally you can see the video. Voilà la vidéo, hein.
Oui, on voit la vidéo.
Okay.
Yes.
So good morning, you all. We are going to take you on a guided tour of GeoRisques, starting with research on Google. So for us, it's very important that the site is very well referenced because we want to communicate about risks. So it appears as the first website when we type GeoRisques or risk on Google. The site is naturally in French, targeting the French audience. As it was built using best practice, it's also available in English if we translate it on Google Translate. So we are going to do that so it's easier for you to follow. So we will get back to the first part afterward, but we've got different parts. We've got parts for individuals, for experts, and for communities. Here you can see that there are some videos that explains, for example, what is the dangers, what is a risk. And also we have a part with some news and the different parts dedicated to different audience. We are going to focus on the community, on the particular individuals part today. So it's written in everyday French, so it's easier to understand for the general audience. Here we are going to type one address, which is located in the city of Nîmes in the south of France. So when we go to this address, we're going to see the different risks that exist at this address and in the city. Here we go. We have a very nice area because it's located near to a Roman arena. And we see that at this address, different risks exist, and we can have also the risk report of the risk that exists at this address. So it's very easy to download it and to have access to all the information at this address. Then you see that, for example, the different risks that exist here are flood risk, earthquake. Then if we go below, there is also a risk of land movements, forest fire, radon risk, for example. In the same way, we have also access to the technological risk. So, for example, if we go on the flood risk, we can have different information. So we can see the perimeter of the flood zone that exists around Nîmes. There is one zone that needs to be a little higher up, for example. And we see that there are urban restrictions also on urban development. You can see also here that there is a map showing the potential for groundwater to rise, which means the water table that can rise when there is too much flooding or too much rain. And then we have also detailed information. We can have access to some legal documents here, for example, the prevention plan, and it allows to know better how to prevent and minimize the flood risk. If we go a little below, we can see also that the different events of floods that occurred in the city since 1982. Here we have 20 events, so that it's quite important. Then to give you an idea, so the page on this risk are quite detailed because it explains also very well what type of risk are at the address. because there are many types of flood risk, and we can have a small definition on the different flood risk that exist at this address. We can have also some key figures, some small videos, and also people can access some PDFs. So it's not translated here, but it indicates all the different reflexes and good behaviors someone can adopt to prevent the event of flood risk. So in the same way, we can, for example, go to have elements on reducing vulnerability, have infographics also to understand what are the weak points that exist at this address. And it helps to become a stakeholder in the local risk management and to become more resilient also. So it's also written in everyday French, so it's easier for people to understand without a scientific language. And the aim is to increase knowledge about the risk. And so what it happens, for example, it's that in anticipation, you can know how to exactly act. So here we are again on the flood risk page, but we are going to look at another address on that we are going to look for on a map. So we don't know, for example, the exact address, but we can find a home by searching it on a map. We are going, for example, to the city of Fréjus, which is also located in the south of France. And we can find, for example, one house here and access the risk that exists on that house. So if we go to the risk portal, we can see that there are, for example, coastal risks such as tsunami. There is also a risk of shrinkage and swelling of clay soils because it causes cracks in houses. And another risk that exists is also the radon risk, which is one natural radioactive gas. So then we can access also on the whole area and, for example, see the existing forest fire in the area. There are also some legal documents here. So you have, as mentioned for the flood risk, all the different definitions, good reflexes, and preparation behaviors to prevent the forest fire risk, for example. If we go to a town nearby, we can also see some industrial risks that exist. So we are not going to go very far. Here you can see that there are 3 different industrial risks. They may be also nuclear risk, but we won't go on this risk today. Then if we go, for example, on the risk of on the risk classification, we can see that there are 3 factories called Seveso factories nearby. And we can get information on the level of activity, for example, and the authorizations also. The other information given here are the administrative situation, for example. And we can also access to the different dangerous elements that it contains. So we'll set that no. Here are the authorizations as mentioned previously. And you can see that there are authorizations since 2005, for example, and also inspection reports. So we can have regular inspections on dangerous installations, and the inspection reports are published also in French. But here, for example, we can see that the last inspection report was published in 2023. What we have also noticed about these industrial plants, it's that some work has been requested to maintain safety around the site. So if we go back, we can see, for example, another industrial risk, which is linked to the transport of hazardous materials, so with the presence of one hydrocarbon pipeline. So here also we have more precise information on where it is, but even if we don't know where it is, we know that it's close. On the industrial risk, also we have soil pollution. So we have information that is not always very clear, but which is important for people. So we have polluted soil that are going to be identified, for example, in this map. And we can access to the constraints, the town planning, as you can see here. And we aim to have a real effort on the transparency, because the administration has to create confidence with people. So it's important that the information is extremely transparent and that it is available and accessible also to the main audience. So we will go further on that, and we see that there are also other specific risks. Here we go that there are some information that say that there is an existing risk in the town, but we don't know exactly whether or not it's located at the address. But also to know that there is a risk in the town, it helps to prevent the risk, the danger, and know how to reduce their vulnerability. Then on this page, we have two other important tools. One is the DCRIM. The DCRIM is a municipal document for information on major risk, and it's published by the town. As you can see, there is one document, for example, here, and that's compulsory. It's personalized for the town. And then we have, as mentioned before by Nicolas, the IAL tool to inform buyers and tenants about the risk existing on a particular address. So I will stop here. Thank you for listening, and I will let the floor to the monitors. Thank you.
Thank you very much, both of you. Nicolas, oh, there is echo. Do you hear without echo now? Yes. So very briefly to make a transition. So we would like to express our gratitude to Nicolas, who has accepted to commit himself in this exercise without being a fluent English speaker, but with the help of Clara, it was very coordinated. And we express our gratitude to Clara because she is a staff member of AFPCNT who has contributed a lot to the preparation of the event and even more to the direct event today. So now I wish to say you as well to use the chat if you have questions already on this presentation and later for the one I will introduce now. So use please the chat, because we will be more at ease to organize the debate later on. Ultimately, and last but not least, we are glad to welcome Professor Cees van Westen, who also from the University of Twente in the Netherlands, and who is in this today he's the project director of PARATUS EU Project, in fact. And so, Cees, you have the floor.
Okay, thank you very much. Thank you for the organizers to invite me for this first meeting. Let me share my screen and then start my presentation. Hope you can all see it. Is it correct? Yes. So I would like to present to you, the aspect of multi-hazard risk assessment. We have seen in the previous presentation also that you can explore an area, whether it's exposed to multiple hazards, but we would also look in this one how hazards happen at the same time in space and overlapping as well, and how that gives additional problems. And that's also why we make this particular project, this study. If you look here to the right, the map of the world map with the main disasters coming from a reinsurance organization, Munich Re, you would see a number of these events that are hurricanes or earthquakes. They are often presented as single events, but in fact, they are a whole combination of different problems. A tropical storm in an area might be accompanied by extreme wind, extreme rainfall, causing also landslides and flooding. The wind causes wind damage, but also storm surge, and all these hazards interact with each other. Others might actually happen in different time periods shortly after each other. So we consider hazards not by themselves, but also by their interrelationships. First of all, how they would occur, whether they are having a relationship in terms of the triggering, or whether they occur in a cascade, like one event triggers another one, etc., or whether they amplify each other. So, for example, a wildfire might cause more flooding if the rainfall happens afterwards. And so we're looking also at spatial relationships, whether these events overlap partially or not. And also quite important is we look at the temporal relationship. Are these events, even though they might be the same or different, are they actually separated in time, happen independently from each other, or they might also happen shortly after each other, as illustrated in the figure, that they might actually, one might occur while the recovery from another event still is going on. So they, what we call consecutive events, or they might occur simultaneously. These would have quite different impact in terms of the effect that they would have. However, disaster statistics are often being treated still as individual events. Say there are some major disaster databases in the world, like the EMDAT, the Global Disaster Database, or Des Inventar, which is like the bottom-up type of database. They are basically storing information as individual events. And studies have been done, for example, by our colleagues from the Free University of Amsterdam that looked at these EMDAT data, and they discovered that at least 40% of them are multi-hazard events based on an overlap of 50%, and that they would occur within 3 months of each other. Another study done by colleagues from Strathclyde in the UK, showing in the map here above, also says then, well, if they are multi-hazard events, what kind of relationships do they then have with each other? And so there's a lot of them have these triggering aspects or preconditioning aspects. Others are, say, spatially compounding, so they happen at the same place and worsen the situation, or they're temporally compounding, so they might happen at different locations, but put stress on the emergency system. So these is a relevant aspect to consider. And so we are looking at this multi-hazard risk component, where we are breaking that up into individual sections. We have the hazards as such, what are their interactions, their spatial relations, and the frequency. But we also have the assets, on the other hand, what are their types, what the spatial entity are, how do we characterize them, the interaction between the two, a hazard footprint and assets like buildings or land use is exposure, and the degree of damage would be obtained through vulnerability curves. And then we would be able to say something about the expected losses. Of course, these would be the quantitative component, but often they are combined with indicators to represent other dimensions of vulnerability and capacity, and they would lead to information that would be the basis for risk reduction planning. Then this system is also dynamic. It changes over time due to climate change and land use change. So there's a lot of different terms being used here. You see a number of examples of terms that are actually being used in literature to reflect the multi-hazard risk component, but calling it differently. Say they also kind of increase in severity, going, for example, to systemic risk, which is a risk that also puts a whole system in danger. So that is so severe, it threatens the functioning of a system like transportation system, health system, or so. Existential risks is even worse than that. Right, you see an example of one of the main multi-hazard examples I could think of, the earthquake in China in 2008. There's a lot of efforts now focusing on multi-hazards. Here, just a number of examples of current EU projects that are trying to address this, changing multi-hazards in a changing climate. One of them is the PARATUS project. It is a project that aims to develop an open and online user-centered platform for systemic risk assessment. It is done by a group of 19 partners that represents research, industry, local authorities, end users, and NGOs, and works in 4 case study regions with very different problems. Mega city Istanbul, a very earthquake-threatened city Bucharest, cross-border transportation in between Austria and Italy, and Caribbean islands, small island development states. So within this project, we are aiming to learn from past events to give guidelines on how to better develop databases for these complex disaster events and learn them through forensic analysis and impact chains. And we use also remote sensing data to better characterize changes over time and to predict them in future with trend analysis. We try to analyze the risks and also quantify their uncertainty. And then we're trying to develop tools for adaptation. So we're using mitigation measure options and to see which mitigation measure would be most optimal to use in which situation. And we also use serious games as an option. We bring it together in a platform for systemic risk analysis. We also link it with other projects. So we are working with projects in the global south on small island development states. We work with DG ECHO projects that look at, disaster events in other countries. And so our platform that we aim to develop is very simplified, looks like this. We have 2 major components. The one component on the left side is a information service component where we are trying to bring together different information sources that would be relevant for stakeholders. Our stakeholders are not directly the general public, as was in the example of the GEORISQUES. We are targeting to decision makers on risk reduction. So those could be first, second responders, planners, and so where they get the information to make those decisions. So we bring that together in a kind of information service component. And on the other hand, we have on the right side, we provide a number of tools that help stakeholders develop their own scenarios and alternatives for risk reduction based on their own particular situation. So these have a series of tools that will be developed in a web-based platform. We're also trying to link that up with information from other EU projects. So we're currently discussing that to see if we could actually team up. So to have like that, a better representation of information already brought together in single platforms. One of the platforms that I could mention here is called the Disaster Risk Gateway, developed in a sister project, but we are looking at how we could actually combine. And that already brings together a lot of resources related to multi-hazard risk assessment. So within a project like us, we have frequent stakeholder interactions. We do quite a lot of workshops, and we have individual consultative meetings to understand the way of working, to co-develop impact chain. So what have been the sequence of impacts within their area, and also to get feedback on the tools that we develop. And we use that also to improve our scenario development and serious games, and also for participative decision making. So one of the key tools within our platform are impact chains. And these are a graphical representation to better understand how disaster events, multi-hazard events evolve, how they interrelate in terms of hazards, but also how the impacts cascade through different sectors of a system. And so we are trying to develop those as a kind of a mind map in consultation with stakeholders. And we develop these kind of tools. I'm sure it should be possible to move to the next. Yes. In a simplified way, it could look like this. This is a very schematized one that shows, for example, an impact, cascading impact of a tropical storm that has direct impacts, but in different sectors, and then also cascading further into indirect impacts. We are trying to bring many of the historical events together so that users can learn from other areas, say, how did a multi-hazard event cause impacts through a system, and that they could use that also to better plan that for their own area. So here you see a small example of one of the real ones. We have brought them together in a kind of wiki environment where it's possible to query them and to consult them better. We're also working on methods to better characterize specific disaster events in terms of how long did they take place and how big their impact was, so that we could make that also in relation with a improved disaster database. We are also discussing with different say organizations to make suggestions to improve disaster databases. Say one of the main tools that we are developing currently is also we have developed is on hazard assessments and risk assessments. Here an example of one of the tools for rapid hazard assessment is called Fast Flood. It's an online tool that allows people to generate flood maps for any part of the world by simply selecting an area, downloading global data sets, or replacing them with more higher resolution data. And through that, being able to analyze and simulate flood events in a very rapid way. And this can be also used to modify situation by developing mitigation measures and then seeing how these mitigation measures would impact the flood events. Here, an example of how that is being done, for example, for developing like an embankment, we can then sketch what would be the effect of the development of that embankment, and we would immediately see how that results in improvement or not. So it's a planning tool to see for stakeholders how quickly we can adjust or evaluate what different planning options are there. So this tool has been is one of a series of tools that we aim to develop for different applications. We can have applied it also in very different areas, both for coastal flooding as well, or for dam break flooding or flash flooding. We also developed a similar tool, which is for mass movement, for landslides, which allows to analyze for any mountainous part in the world where landslides might initiate and where they might run out. And this is also a fast method that is very helpful in designing mitigation measures, but also in terms of early warning. We bring those tools together in a loss estimation tool. It's called Risk Changes, which integrates the hazard information with elements at risk, so the buildings, the population, the roads, or whatever other information, and vulnerability data with administrative units, and allow to estimate how much of the elements at risk would be exposed, so how many buildings would be flooded, but also what would be the expected losses of individual events and the combined risk information. So we have that also as an online tool developed, which can also be used to analyze the effect of climate change and other future changes, and also the changes in terms of risk reduction. So you can test out what would be the change in risk if we do a certain development in an area. And that could be the basis then for cost-benefit analysis for further analyzing this. Finally, we are using also collaborative mapping tools. So where different stakeholders come together, they evaluate the situation within an area, and then they consider different risk reduction options, for example, by engineering works, or by ecological measures, or by evacuation planning, or any other tool. And through this series of softwares, they would be able to analyze what would be the effect of those interventions, and they could also visualize that in 3D within their area. So this
Thank you.
So one more. I have two more slides before finishing. So one of the guiding questions here is, which method is best for multi-hazard risk assessment? And so we want to guide, say, end users that work at different scales, at national or lower scales, for different purposes and different types of hazards, also with different data availabilities, and also changes over time, to suggest what methods, what approaches would be best in which situations. So we have developed also stakeholder environment, a stakeholder hub for our projects. We would invite you to register for those, and also see further the results of our project, which still takes 2.5 years. So thank you very much for your attention.
Thank you very much, Cees, for the presentation. And also, thank you very much, Nicolas Bonnin and Cees van Westen. So, joining to this first webinar of the webinar series and sharing your work with us to discuss more in depth how to make risk-based decision making for all, like how to make it work and meet also the needs of end users and how to create linkages between scientists and end users. And before opening the discussion, I see that Philippe Cavalier is here among us, and he works a lot to create this connection between end users and scientists. And I would like to give the floor to him, to introduce himself and also. Hi, Philip, welcome. Thanks for joining.
Thank you, Funda. Thank you, Cees, for your nice presentation. It was very interesting. Well, I'm very happy to say a few words, in fact, about what is going on at EU level on disaster risk management. So I'm Philippe Cavalier, and I'm in charge at DG Home of the Disaster Resilience for Europe part of the program of Cluster 3. So I'm defining research topics, and while on societal resilience, I've been active in drafting these topics. So I'm very happy to see how these projects are now combining expertise in support of risk-based decision making. And I would like to say that PARATUS is one of the projects which have also participated in a cluster on societal resilience, which provide a critical mass of knowledge, which is quite impressive and led to a very strong position paper written by 9 projects representing more than 120 organizations. And it has a direct support internationally to the Sendai framework for action implementation, but also for us at EU level on the Union Civil Protection Mechanism. And we hope to get a relay to the national and even regional decision makers. And here, the impact of the networks of networks is crucial. That is, we are trying to have international networks, like, for example, CERIS, which is a Community of European Research and Innovation for Security, but we are also trying to link with national initiative and even to regional initiative. So what is being developed now, well, in combination from AFPCNT and iDream, for example, is of very, very strong strategic importance, because what we are doing at EU level regarding research support is very strong, very, very valuable. But it should not address only the partners of each project, which are people who are aware. We should also try to reach the bottom-up level, which is quite difficult. And for this, we need to relay to national and regional stakeholders. And it's why we need this kind of networking approach, network of networks. We will try to do what we can at EU levels. We have a discussions on the 6th of June about international cooperation and these network initiatives. And if I may try to push future research programming in Horizon Europe to try to facilitate this process, it will be my real pleasure, because we think that we need to help also the research and the links that they have with local authorities, practitioners, civil society, to bring their expertise down to the real, well, to the real case situation locally and regionally, which is an enormous challenge. So for me, just to let you know, it was a very short intervention, just to let you know that I'm very happy to listen to what you are saying, that I'm really very, very happy to see that this happens, this kind of webinar, and I hope that it will continue, and well, you will have all our support from the CERIS side. Thank you very much.
If I may.
Thank you very much.
Yes, please, Funda, go on.
Roland, do you?
Okay, it's the issue of a distance between us. But okay, if I may just say thanks again to Philippe. He was not sure to be with us, and we are very glad for that. And he emphasized the links. And also our task now will be to emphasize between the two cases which have been selected between ourselves, Funda and myself, to try to find some links between practitioner's case and research ongoing. So I think in the research just presented by Cees, there is a multi-hazard risk issue, of course, the multi-stakeholder partnership which is embedded in it, and our association are definitely the French, the German, the Austrian, and the Swiss as well are multi-stakeholder networks of networks. And the issue of feedback from the project to the stakeholders and end user as expressed. So everything there are common approaches, of course. We are now expecting from the two, and it's a tricky part of the program. We expect from the two to dialogue in front of you, to exchange between themselves before the debate. The open debate takes place, and this round may also start to answer your question. And therefore the chat, please raise your question on the chat, and it will be organized the best we can on the spot. Maybe Funda, you want to add something, and we start already the debate.
Okay. Thank you very much, Philip, and thanks for the support of SARIS Network. And so I think like we have two types of discussion. First, we would like to give the floor to our two speakers and to reflect to each other's work. And I actually have some questions to them. And then please, you can use the chat. Then we will give the floor to audience. You can use the chat, but also you can later on use your mic if you want to ask your question directly. So I would like to start this first part by asking Nicolas. Nicolas, thank you very much for sharing with us the platform. And I would like to ask you whether there are some functionalities that which haven't been implemented yet, but you are planning to implement, and also to make it more linked to the decision makers, also like the platforms like PARATUS maybe.
Juste un point là, elle te demande le lien avec la plateforme PARATUS, c'est ça?
Oui, mais d'abord les fonctionnalités.
Okay. And yes, we have a roadmap for improvement, both individuals or for experts. But this year we'll be focusing on mayor and collectivity and experts. At the next year, we hope to be able to improve data quality and make it easier to understand regulation in high-risk areas. For the link with PARATUS, it's a difficult question. I think it's very it's very important to have good data to use the PARATUS platform. And GEORISQUES can provide a lot of data on the risk to use a platform as PARATUS. But it's not the same use, the same objective. Yes.
Thank you very much, Nicolas. And Cees, how platforms like GEORISQUES can be integrated to decision-making platforms like PARATUS?
Yeah, I think that's a good question, because we are, for example, the PARATUS platform is a generic platform, not aiming at one particular country, right? So GEORISQUES is definitely, it's a French platform. It's a very extensive platform, but a very good example of how risk can be communicated to, in this case, real estate people, but also for say risk communication to general public. We have also similar applications in the Netherlands. So we have also a site where you can say you put in your address and you have the information on the risks that you are exposed to. And we have also what we call the risk atlas, which has been developed over time, and it took quite a bit of time. Also because at some stage in the development of the atlas, there were some major terrorist attacks in Europe. And then the question became, okay, how much of this information also on technological hazards should be actually put online, and how much should be actually kept behind passwords, because you don't want to make that publicly available also for people with bad intentions. So at a certain level, they decided to have the website in two different versions, one for the general public and one with a password for the first and second responders that would even have access to, for example, the chemical quantities within the factories and so on. And I was wondering if that would be also the case for France, whether you had also these issues related to, say, the safety of and also the whether you're allowed to actually put the information all online, where, for example, it would also affect very much the price of a house, of a property, if it is exposed to particular types of hazards. I think within the Netherlands, this would probably give much more issues. Say this would very much be, a reason for debate, because it will affect the house prices also as well. How was that in the case of France?
So we'll answer it. I'm just translating.
Yeah.
By the way, I want to say that case there are also some similar questions in the chat about it, how it affects the housing price, price, and also let me see. Yes, the price of the house. Whether there are objections.
We have a few studies on the influence of the risk on the price of house. We say in attractive zone, the risk have no influence. Just near the sea, it's dangerous. It's probably uninhabitable in a few years, but the price of house maintain very expensive and increased. But in a lower attractive area, we have a risk for a lower and decrease of the price of house.
Thank you. I thank you once again. And I actually now give the floor to Roland to continue moderating the discussion with the audience.
Thank you, Funda. I think we are reaching two aspects of the debate. One is about the, when I say the philosophy or the acceptance, popular acceptance of a functionality. So we address here the functionality of risk-based decision about housing transaction. And it's quite an issue. We can continue the debate, and we hope that the open debate will address this point, which is really the motivation to do something, and we can see that it's not always working as far as we would, as the attractive the attractive regional locations are not influenced very much the pricing so far. And maybe because of the French system of NatCat, which is very efficient in other aspects. And so this is the first category of questions you may have. And the second, and we can continue on that between the two colleagues, but the second category is more about the selected functionality we had, which is a risk-based decision-making, a special issue of risk decision-making, but there are many other. So, and within this point, there is the links I expressed, and some of you, case and Nicolas initiated also the debate on the complementarity of between what exists and what is in the development for the time being, illustrated by this particular project. So what can be done to improve, to solve other needs in this respect? So we are in these two issues. I may say the first is a legal, philosophical debate, and the second one is, but many other aspects, not only legal and philosophical, also, of course, a kind of marketing issue, how to get the people buy or accept this type of solution if it is introduced by the state. And the other one is a more engineering issue on how engineering and development issue on how to make progress to satisfy better and more the needs of the end users. Okay, I shall stop there and invite maybe other. So we get comments on the chat about the tool in general, but we may continue on that later on. So there are not many questions so far from our side, but I mean, I can from the chat, so please continue to feed the chat. If we can also perhaps ask the two speakers to elaborate on what we said already, Funda and myself, with respect to the two issues, the kind of needs with respect to the issue here, the risk report at the address. So, and what can be, to what kind of needs this can, and we have one example with the French case, and the other part, which is how to cross-fertilize the applied tool, one case, and projects like PARATUS. So I raise these complex questions of the two issues, and please choose what you want to elaborate on. Kees is
okay. Maybe if I can start, if that's okay. I think one of the large differences between there are many differences, of course, because we are really having presenting two very different initiatives. One is really a direct service to basically real estate agencies and individual people that want to buy or rent a house. That is also has a legal foundation to provide information on the safety of that location, whereas the other tool is very much more looking at what would be decision makers, what are their options in terms of reducing the level of risk for a particular location now, but also considering future risks, and also looking at, say, indirect impacts of events. So in that sense, they are really different, but both deal with risk and risk from different hazards. I think the difference also is that, say, the GEORISQ example is an example of an all hazards approach. So every hazard is kind of separately analyzed. And so you can say, is my house exposed to flooding? Is it exposed to pollution? But then perhaps pollution during the flooding might not be directly considered. So pollution as a result of flooding. And so the interactions between the hazards are often very scenario-based, and they are very difficult to put them as static maps available to the public. And so for that purpose, I think the information is being given as separate layers, where you can then get your report out and say, my property is in these type of hazard zones, but also what would be the dynamic effect of one scenario of a chain of events that might be different from the static maps that are there. And so the purpose is different, but also the timing is different, say more static versus dynamic events. And this is also a little bit the question, I think, to my colleagues, Nicolas and Clara. Of course, hazards, they would they occur and they would change the situation as it was before. So if, for example, you have a forest fire in an area and that changes the condition of the landscape. So your house might be not exposed to forest fires initially, but after a forest fire, it might be different. And same with other types of hazards. So this dynamic aspect of the maps within GeoRISC, how basically are they updated after major events? And do they also consider, say, the effect of climate change into it?
If I may intervene very briefly before asking Nicolas to answer your points. Yes, definitely. I mean, we have some tools like the one presented by GeoRISC. There is one in Austria, for instance, called HORA, Hochwasserrisikoabschätzung, local name. And just to say that we might see another performance introducing this one with different approaches. It was mono-risk about flooding, and now it's extended to multi-risk, and it provides 3 dimensions compared to more or less 1 dimension, but they are both static. And so just to compare, and it's very interesting that you initiated this kind of comparison on the technical and functional approaches. I just wanted to introduce that for Nicolas to continue. I may just give a testimony as well that Nicolas from the French ministry was very motivated to this exercise in order to get information from other experiences like the one they have in France in order to cross-fertilize and to see what's going on around the world on this. And we, my last word would be that, of course, those who attend are very much welcome to also contribute to this debate you have initiated, Cees. A last word from a question on the chat is Anne-Marie Levaux asks how is the database PARATUS, if there is a database, how is it fed into data from? So the question of if there are databases within the PARATUS project or if it's a functional, multifunctional approach. So in fact, yes, there is a fundamental difference. In one case, there is a database, a very extensive database of the maps, hazard maps in France, which is connected to the GeoRISC tool. What about the database, or are you using other database? So first, maybe this quick question, and then we give the floor to Nicolas for the question you have raised.
Yeah, maybe to quickly answer this question, this is partly the databases of the individual case study areas. So those are, analyzed within the project, but also we're looking and also in collaboration with other projects to historical events in the EM.DAT databases. There's a study done by Klaassen et al. From Free University that analyzed, say, for the 15 years, which hazards have happened over, well, basically globally, and how they differed in space and time. And so how many of the events have overlapped within a very short period of time and could be called multi-hazards. And that resulted in a new database called a multi-hazard database. And now people are also trying to understand from the EM.DAT database better what have been the impacts of multi-hazards. And so that would be a database contribution from such projects. Thank you.
Thank you. We may now give the floor to Nicolas again to try to interact with what was said by Cees.
Okay. Just one precision on database. Our information is generally non-statical. We don't operate like an insurer. Your information is based on hazards that have occurred, scientific studies, and local and national regulations. It's not a statistic or it's an evidence. When we have a disaster, we change regulation, we change scientific studies, and we change information on GeoRISC. Just the objective of GeoRISC, the first objective is the information of all people in public, mayor, expert, on the knowledge of the risk. It's not to make simulation. It's other services, it's other tool, and it's very hard to have a good database and good tools to inform. It's not your challenge to make simulation, to make multi-risk work for reduce vulnerability. We give data and tools to other scientific, to other engineer to make this. And we try to give good data.
Thank you, Nicolas. I may just add a comment about the databases which are discussed here. We have to consider the different levels of geography or aggregation. I mean, there are very macroscopic databases, such as the one indicated by Cees, which are worldwide, providing loss data at event level and per year, etc. So this is something very important to consider the overall hazard development and the damage, etc. So but here in the case of GeoRISC, we are even if it's national, the inquiry is local, is at the level of at the grid of the real estate address, and to that extent, it's more micro level, and we have to agree on what we are talking about. And indeed, the dynamic approach at the micro level is something a very good progress potentially. It's also the spatial approach. As we consider for the time being, it's on maps, so it's two-dimensional, or somehow to situate the real estate in a risk zone. And we got the information recently from our Austrian friends. They are approaching the three-dimensional situation in order to give the level of snow, for instance, of flood at a very local level, which is, I think, still a challenge. It's a challenge for the general for this type of project. Okay. Yes, Nicolas?
Just a precision. Nothing would be possible on GeoRISC without the contribution of all local players. The majority of my data has local players' data. It's not my data, national data only. Okay. It's a major task to convince, animate, coordinate the action of local authorities and harmonize data, but it's the only way to have reliable data for the entire territory. It's an aggregation of local data often, and not just national data.
And Nicolas, there is actually a question in the chat about it. And the question is, like, how do you involve local administrations in gathering the data?
Yes. It's very important. We have we work with the mayor to have a DCRIM, the document for information. We work with all the data, all the local administration to have the information, and we anime and harmonize data after.
Mm-hmm. Thank you. And Roland, there was actually a hand raised before. do you still want to ask the question? JC? Burde.
It's also have a question.
In the chat?
Yes.
Maybe he left. Yeah, we have some questions in the chat. Yeah, JC, would you like to?
Okay, I was just willing to tell that the GeoRISQ is a very efficient tool. But as it was said, the data are very important. And for the avalanches in France, data depends on the state. And the state has not yet done the job for 156 cities in the mountains where you can find the data. And all the information are done are false because they are based on old data, which and the new data should have been done since 2015. You see, so our association, and we are a member of AFPCNT. We fight for the state to do this urgent mise à jour of the data.
Yes, thank you for this comment.
Yeah.
Yes.
GeoRISQUES take care of homes for house, for street, for town. I'm sorry, my English is very poor, but not for the skiing or the sports mountain. Yeah, when you say avalanche. When you say avalanche, it's avalanche. We damage house, we damage people in the town, not sport people.
Yes, of course. It's for to protect the houses, not people skiing.
And we make in DGPR, in the General Department of Prevention of Risk, we have many actions to prevent avalanche on the town, not on the road. It's not we part, but on the town to reduce the mountain risk.
Yes, well, I don't want to argue too much about it, but we are fighting for 10 years with the prefect, the head of the departments in France, and the DGPR has no responsibility for them doing their job, you see? That's a French problem. So it's not maybe the time to discuss about this in front of everybody, but you know, and ask the risk department at GGPR. We talk with them every 2 weeks about this subject.
Thank you, Jean-Claude. I think, yes, we have to stick to the core subject. We are here addressing one particular hazard category and the issues related. So we can come back to this in another time. So we have seen that we have switched to direct debate with the audience, and that's nice. So we shall continue with Funda to try to raise questions first from the audience, if not from ourselves. And maybe Anna Maria is appearing. So we are getting closer to the end also of the session, and so at that time there will be conclusions by Anna Maria and as well as from a colleague from AFPCNT who is with us, Christian Després. So we can still address some questions. We have received one from a colleague from Africa, République démocratique du Congo, who would have liked us to speak English, even French without the French accent on the English. Okay, but we shall explain him later on what's totally about, and unfortunately one. Okay, that's one testimony. I think we have also a testimony from Lebanon. I don't know if Perla Funda. Perla is the name of the testimony. Funda, you have analyze this testimony?
I see, where is that? Perla.
Yes.
Perla, would you like to ask your question or do you want me to read it? So, okay, I don't know, maybe she left. She asks, she's a PhD candidate and she works on flood risk perception and management in Beirut. And she asks whether the platforms address informal settlements and that are vulnerable to natural hazards like floods. And yeah, the question is about informal settlements, whether the platforms include.
Yes, a little. It's a complicated question. There are few information platform informal in France, but we can see on GeoRISQ for all the parcel. We have the risk information without say if the parcel can be constructed or not. Is not the same tools. We have another tool, very
excuse me, just Nicolas, to make sure people understand, parcel mean not parcel for transportation, means piece of land where people can buy and establish or not. And the informal is those who are perhaps have garden and they've installed their house in the garden. If you allow me, Nicolas, to complement. Would you wish to continue? Add something, Nicolas?
No, it's perfect.
Thank you. So let's continue. If there are other remaining questions,
Anna Maria has a question. It's on the chat.
Yeah. So let me go back to my question. Yeah, so I thank you very much, Nicolas, for the presentation. And one, I guess maybe we already touched upon this a little bit, and that is, I'm wondering how the information has been collected. So you already said a lot of this information is being collected through the local community, or at least at the local level. And then the other question is, what is the level of accuracy or uncertainty in the data, and if this information is also being provided on the website? So that's one question. And then the other issue that I'm interested in knowing is if you do some kind of survey to understand the satisfaction of users in the use of this data, because I think that's also, or what kind of information they would like to see. Anyway, so this feedback, I think it would be very important. Yeah, those are the two questions.
Okay, for the first, it's very dependent. It's not very easy to try because, for example, for earthquake, actualization is not very important. No change very often. But for floodings or for fire forest, it's very important to have the good information. It's a national public website from the state, and we make the information when we have a regulation or scientific studies to base your information. It's make a time elapse for this. We try to reduce this. For the industrial risk, all the informations are day by day uploading. Yes,
Updated.
yes, uploading, and we legally to have less than 3 months of delay. For the natural risk, it's more complicated and depend of this local decision of regulation. For the second part of your question, yes, it's very important to have a survey, and you have a big annual survey and a lot of little survey to try to improve. It's very important to learn users to to improve services. But for improve services, the keys is the data, and it's very hard to have very, very good data.
Thank
Thank
you.
you very much. Thank you.
Thank you, Anna Maria. Maybe I'll perhaps close to the last question, which received on the chat as well, asking about networks of networks, which is in the title of our initiative. There is a question to elaborate on networks of networks. So I mean, there are many of us who might discuss it. I think we have this a very distinguished invited guest, who is Philippe Courvillier. We may first ask him, because he already addressed the point, but if we would be available, we see he's still with us, to elaborate a little bit more, and then we might, from the side of AFPCNT and iDream Society, of course, add some words on this before closing. Philippe, are you able to join us again? Maybe he's not available right now, but we can then, I may say some words and open to Anna Maria and Funda. So just to say, I think we are proud as AFPCN, representing the civil society within the ecosystem of disaster risk reduction, to have built in the years, 20 years or more, a part of a kind of network for network, which represents part of the ecosystem in France. And this means AFPCN is the umbrella networks, which includes, through its members, specific networks, which are associations of scientists, associations of practitioners, associations of local authorities. So, and we can continue like that. And this makes the capacity of society to address such issues and to take part to public debates or to organize their own debates. So to just give an example, we have this participative governance issue, which has been raised by a UN convention from Aarhus in Denmark, and which allows people to have access, to have the freedom of access to information on the environment and even to justice. And as the risks are part of the environment, we have seen in France a significant development of these committees at national levels as well as regional and local level. And this is a very important aspect of capacity of society to take part, to be informed, but even to take part. And this is a way of creating, if we can create a network between these different components of such instances, such committees, it contributes to improve the capacity of the various components and the society as a whole. I start to give the floor to Anna Maria and Funda.
So thank you very much. I don't want to add too much, but just would like to thank Nicolas and Cees for sharing the presentation, and especially taking the time to to discuss with us, and being very frank also about the the tools that you have presented. And thank you also for sharing the presentations, for those that were asking about the presentations. This is, I think, a wonderful start for this Network of Networks initiative. And I hope that we will continue. I think if it is possible, it would be nice to be able to continue having, if people agree, that we contact you later to provide information on future initiatives or future webinars. I think that's very important, and to share news that we think might be of interest related to this work. Anyway, thank you very much. Thank you to Funda and Roland for all the efforts, and of course to everyone that participated tonight. Thank you so much. And so I give the floor to Funda now.
Please, can we just give the floor to the representative of the chairman of AFPCNT for very short closing remarks, and then we shall close of Funda and myself, provide ultimate element. So here is Christian Després.
Yes. Hello, everybody. Yes, I want to be very short. Yes, we had this meeting from Berlin. Yeah, we, the French organization AFPCNT, hosted by Raymond and Helmholtz Center. This had an important meaning because we was in Berlin for an international conference of risk reduction organized by the Red Cross. And what was important in this conference, just one key word, is that we need to, we the civil organization, to help to the risk reduction, we need network. And further, like, of course, Roland, Ayuna, and Funda told, it's network of network. And this webinar was a first experiment, a very important experiment. More than 100 people was ready to take part, and everybody could not be here. But we want to continue because we have to stimulate, to boost this kind of network. And we want keep in touch because this is the most important in this case. And also we hope that maybe we could have an important conference in person in the next year, maybe in Paris or in another part where it will be comfortable for anyone. So hope to see you again, and please continue to have this important relationship in this network.
Thank you very much, Christian. The message is given, and maybe we are less impressive in our last words, but we shall do it. We have done preparation work. Please, Funda, you have initiated. You start, and I will finish.
Okay, so yes. We have been discussed about also like Ana Maria Cruz just mentioned, the next webinars, and but I also want to say something that, of course, we are not the only network or network of networks. There are like network coming together for different purposes. So what is our purpose? What makes us different? So what are the rules of this game? So first of all, like we would like to contribute to the Sendai framework directly, focusing on the risk-based decision-making for all. And we do this organizing this webinar series. And in each webinar, there will be 2 panelists, and then like they will discuss this issue. And one panelist will be a scientist, another one is end users. And so because it like these meetings should be totally or partially specific, so the needs of the society, but also at different levels. It can be international, national, or as we saw today, it was a national example. And the purpose is to stimulate production of ideas, proposals, and basically mainly focusing on the implementation. And also yeah, we believe that like with these webinars that are focused on like risk-based decision making, we will kind of contribute to this collaborative and voluntary work. And can we please go to the next slide? Yes, so as I said, no, it was okay, the previous one, just to repeat again. Yeah, as I said, like it's important to have one practitioner, one scientist, and having this unique dialogue between the two. And we have the second webinar that we have already started organizing. So now we can go to the last slide, Clara. Thank you very much. Okay, this is the information about the next webinar. We don't have the two speakers yet. We are communicating with the second speaker, but the first speaker is confirmed, and it will be 20th of May, Monday. We know it is vacation in Europe, but like we received a request from Colombia. There is a international conference on disaster risk reduction and adaptation to climate change. And during the first day, during the opening of this conference, we will host the second webinar. And kindly, like one of the speakers kindly accepted, like John Paul Pinelli. He's a professor in Florida Institute of Technology, and he has developed already various tools for decision making, like, for example, wind hazard and infrastructure, or a tool about hurricane loss model, or you can like see also the logos of these different tools. And we will share this information with you, but please put it on your calendars if you want to join 20 May, 9 a.m. Colombia time. It is 4 p.m. in Central Europe, and it's 11 p.m. for Japan. And so we thank you all, and we will if you disagree about sharing this recording online, please let us know, because we would like to share this recording, and also we will share with you the documents, and you will receive an email from us after this webinar. And also I thank our speakers that they shared their presentations in the chat. So thank you very much, all of you. I'm so happy that like after very long months of discussion, how to do what, how to bring these different networks together, we had our first webinar today. So I'm happy, and thank you for the contribution. Roland, would you like to close?
Thank you, Funda. Yes, just a few words. Just to add, there's another stepping stone to take place in Athens, where there is an annual conference of another network of scientists. They are I don't dare to say they are competing, they are complementing, and they are even present both in this conference in Athens, where we, Funda and myself, we are asked to present this initiative, and especially to elaborate on the two first experiments which would have taken place, the one here and the one indicated by Funda in May. And it will also open I would say, the construction of this network of networks for the further stages. And I may just finish with a very simple message. In fact, the contribution can be the one of physical persons as experts of one of the RBDM risk-based decision-making functionalities, like the one we have seen today, and which we may see again elsewhere. And so the physical person can be practitioner and scientist. We can have moral persons, meaning organizations and associations from a civil society in particular, but also scientific associations, such as the two already involved, mainly iDream Society, but also perhaps SRS, Society of Risk Analysis, and other ones, GADRI, and so on. And so we have this open, it's a very ambitious project to try to bring together, but it's an informal construction. We don't need to elaborate new association, it's a kind of is kind of a demonstration of the possibility to collaborate between existing organizations and to join for a very important target objective in our world, which is risk-based decision making. How to make this more real and efficient in all places, from local to global. Okay, with that, I think we should more or less stop and thank you again from both sides, and hope to see you again, and we'll receive a lot of updating material from now on from us. Thank you. Bye-bye.
Thank you.
Bye-bye.
Good
Thank
night.
you.
Yeah,
Bye.
even
Thank you.